audible?
Good morning.
Am I audible?
Yeah, you're clearly audible. Just trying to set in my PPT. Just because I was thinking you all have enabled this sharing, but anyway, just trying to set my PPT and then I'll start. Or
Sure.
if you say I can start this period.
Sure, ma'am. Shall we start, ma'am?
Okay. Okay. So actually, I wanted to share a PPT also, and it's taking because recently you have
Shall we start, ma'am? Ma'am, you have unmuted. You have to unmute yourself, ma'am.
Are you asking me or you are asking the resource person?
Good morning, ma'am. I was asking the resource person.
Okay.
Shall we start, ma'am?
okay.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Good morning to everyone present here. It gives me immense pleasure to welcome eminent personalities on such a beautiful day. Today, we have organized a national level online webinar on pandemic and emerging trends in literature for our dear students, colleagues, and fellow academicians. I welcome our distinguished speaker of the day, Dr. Gitanjali Tiwari, Associate Professor in English, Dr. Kiran Angra, Principal, M.D.S.D Girls College, my dear friend Dr. Monica, Assistant Professor in our college, other colleagues and friends who have joined together under the aegis of IQAC and Department of English to reflect the most important feature of today's era, that is pandemic and changing trends in literature. I feel overjoyed and my gratitude goes to Dr. Angra for giving all of us this wonderful opportunity to organize such an important event. Dear friends, Dr. Gitanjali Tiwari, who is Am I audible, ma'am? Dear friends, Dr. Gitanjali Tiwari, who is stalwart of knowledge and wisdom, is an associate professor in the Department of English in DAV PG College, Dehradun, Uttarakhand, India. She believes that life is a continuous learning phase and research forms a vital cornerstone for any academic field. She has done her PhD in comparative works of Thomas Mallory and Alfred Tennyson, propagating her love for literature by actively mentoring her PhD students. She has published her books, that is Man-Women Relationship in Contemporary Indian Writings, The Quest for Self in Toni Morrison's novels, and research papers in various national as well as international journals. She has chaired many sessions in seminars and conferences, and she has also attended resource persons in many seminars. She is a multifarious personality who has excelled in every field. Dear ma'am, we are delighted to have you with us. At the same time, we are eager to listen you as well. I also, before starting this webinar, I also want to seek blessings of my dear principal, Dr. Kiran Angra, if she want to say few words to us, ma'am.
I wish you all the best, and I hope this is something, a topic, which is surely itself a novel in itself, pandemic and the emerging trends in the literature, something very, very unique to me. I wish you all, the whole team, the Sarojini Naidu Club, the Anuradha.
Am I audible, ma'am?
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
So shall we start?
Yes, ma'am. I think at ma'am's place there is some connection problem. That's why we are not able to listen, ma'am. But in between, we'll have her deliberations.
Okay, okay,
So we shall start now, ma'am.
okay. Thank you so much. It's an honor and privilege to be associated with M.D.S. Girls College, Ambala City. I would like to extend my gratitude to Principal Dr. Kiran Angra and the conveners, Dr. Anuradha and Dr. Monica, for including me in this webinar. Without further ado, let's dive into the topic of pandemic and emerging trends in literature. So before starting the topic, that is the pandemic and emerging trends, I would like to speak on first few lines on what is literature. Literature has always been an interactive, engaging process, allowing our minds to absorb and attach onto concepts with other proportions, attaching strongly to our intellect and emotions. Literature is not just a form of escapism, as normally people think, from the realities of life. It allows readers to confront the complexities of human life and residing within this world. It allows individuals to understand themselves and others through propagations or historic figures and those that surround them within literature. It ignites the imagination to poets that relate back to them, to the themes of their poems, exploring human emotion of love, anger, fear, etc. However, all with very different perspectives. And as we all know, that literature is the mirror of society. Literature reflects the social, cultural, economic, and historical life of human beings. Literature no longer remains limited to particular geographical, national, or cultural circumstances. The global concerns and shifting paradigms informing different arts forms have transformed the nature and the understanding of literature. The literature is a reflection of society is a fact, and that has been widely acknowledged. Literature indeed reflects the society, its goods values and its ills. In this corrective function, literature mirrors the ills of society with a view to making the society realize its mistakes and make amends. It also projects the virtues of good values in the society for people to compete with. Literature as an imitation of human action often presents a picture of what people think, say, and do in the society. So here we find stories designed to portray human life and action through some characters, by some words, action, and reaction, which convey certain messages for the purpose of education, information, and entertainment also. It is impossible to find a work of literature that excludes the attitudes, morale, and values of society. Since no writer has been brought up completely unexposed to the world around him, what writers of literature do is to transport the real life events of their society into fiction and present it to the society as a mirror with which people can look at themselves and try to correct themselves if at all they feel it is necessary for them. So we can say that literature is not only a reflection of society, but also serves as a corrective mirror in which members of society can look at themselves and find the need of positive change. Literature also influences us and makes us perceive each stroll of life. Narratives specifically encourage empathy and provide folks with a brand new perspective on their lives and the lives of others. So readers, we can say that readers and writers share a symbiotic relationship. The reader of literature recreates the creation of the writer, and both cannot work without each other. So the writer and the reader are equally important to each other, as allowing intimate communication between the reader and the writer, or you can say author. The writer can communicate with experiences and visions through which readers can conclude through their own perspectives according to their own knowledge they have stored so far in their mind. The greater the number of perspectives is better it is to fully understand literature. Then we can say that English literature has a universal appeal in 21st century. It has widely spread beyond imperial England. Although English literature started and flourished in England, as we all know, it has gone to sow the seeds of creativity in English in other parts of the world as well. Interestingly, the English people themselves paved the way for the unexpected developments that we witness today. When the English colonizers went to America, they began to write their own literature of the America. Similarly, those Englishmen and women went to Australia, began the process of a new literature called Australian literature. And so is the case with Canada, India, and Africa. With colonization in some parts of the world, especially Africa and Asia, there emerged a new literature, which later came to be known as a Commonwealth literature. So new literature in English, post-colonial literature, and so on. Not to be left out, even the countries which were not colonized by English, like Bhutan, Iran, Thailand, China, Nepal, started their own literature in English. Gradually, all these literatures in English have come to announce that here is a different kind of literature, but in English. So as we all know that literature reflects the society, what is happening around us is totally reflected in our literature. So literature also defines our response to the COVID-19 outbreak. Now literature has, we can say, a vital role to play in framing our response to COVID-19 pandemic. These are unprecedented times. We have been challenged to the core physically, socially, psychologically, and more importantly, ideologically, by what now appears to be another take on Joseph Conrad's Eternal Call to Humanity. That is his novella we all must have read about. He says, the horror, the horror. It is during such times that human potential for creativity finds fertile ground to take root and flourish. Now, the question arises that how will this pandemic impact literature? So this basic question is actually based on, you can say, some sort of confusion, assumptions, and precariously slippery hope. A brief look at the history of literature that emerged out of natural or man-made crisis reveals a trend depicting the commonality of experiences and specificity of its impact. The human endeavor to survive through the challenges and come out successful and have the grit to resume the journey is perhaps what defines or what informs that how to exist during the crisis in this world. So this extensive accounts of pandemics in literature, especially whenever they are necessitated by circumstantial realities, reflect human capacity to document history in creative molds to make it digestible to the consumer. The account of Egyptian plague in the book of Exodus mention the devastating plague which inspired Sophocles to defy Oedipus' kingly traits. Then the Thucydides' description of the plague that struck Athens and claimed Emperor Marcus Aurelius' lives are some of the earliest attempts to capture the essential nodes of history, along with the human urge to stamp an aesthetic mark on the written over of that age. So whether the paradigm shift comes in the form of medical reasons that we are seeing nowadays, or in a form of influenza, malaria, cholera, SARS, MERS, Ebola, or through the events of phenomenal significance, we all remember that 9/11 disaster which took place, then world wars, then Great Depression. So historical and political happenings have also influenced literature in their times, leaving an lasting mark on literature written during the supposedly so-called normal circumstances. For example, we can quote some other writers also, like Boccaccio's Decameron, Geoffrey Chaucer's Canterbury Tales, Defoe's A Journey of Plague Year, Camus's The Plague, and in the most recent times, Dean Koontz' chilling real prediction of pandemic in the city called Yuan in his 1981 novel, The Eyes of Darkness, and the Edwards, The Year of the Flood, which was published in 2009. To name a few, are all based on inspired by epidemic and pandemic outbreaks and their repercussions. So what does this pandemic literature have in common? These works all project to a lesser or greater degree that ominous, fatalist, and fear-inducing tone that depicts the and amplifies the effect of isolation and loneliness, loss of normalcy, the threat to survival, along with an emphasis on having a will to survive at the darkest moments of history and retain a hope for a better future. So we can say that literature indeed is a human reaction to certain events, occurrences, upheavals, and revolutions. It is after times of real crisis that writers collect and memorize communal and individual struggles. So we can also say that COVID-19 influenced many writers' professional and personal lives. COVID-19 has directly impacted the private lives and working situations of many writers. The socio-economic instability will be reflected in their writings. The threat to economic sustainability will become the criteria of evaluating their aesthetic output. This may, in turn, give importance to fictionalized autobiographical narratives based in real-time settings. Fight for Survival is predicted to take the front seat in terms of thematic thrust of post-COVID-19 writings. Contrasting fear, threat, darkness, and death with freedom, peace and life. The theme of survival will probably resurface again, but this time with a clear message that if we defeat to our mean ways now, civilization as we know it will be threatened. The dire need to bridge the socio-economic divide and communal existence will likely be felt by the writers and demonstrators. We begin to recognize the power of literature to communicate something fresh about our shared experience, something different from simple reporting. It is perhaps too much to say that we gained insight and wisdom in our response to COVID-19. But in entering the alien worlds of epidemics through the ages, we found aspects of our reality that were unerringly familiar. While at this time, prominence of ecological concerns in literature will definitely emerge. The desire to produce a literature of realization will prompt some writers to take an inward journey and find the answers to nature's response to the deadliest virus on the planet, Earth, the human virus, that is we. COVID-19 is having already been called the nature's vaccine against human virus. On a more positive note, we can say that ecological concerns in literature will become more intense and prominent. A clarion call for writers to produce more literature related to healing of our planet, dealing with issues like overpopulation, climate change, economic disparity, poverty, and so on. Eco-criticism requests humans to examine themselves and the world around be evaluated by ways humans represent, interact with, and construct the environment. Eco-criticism has significantly broadened into our aspects such as post-colonial eco-criticism, material eco-criticism, and ecofeminism, with renowned advocates. There are very prominent names I would like to take, that is like Laurence Buell, then Cheryl Glotty, then Simon Astock, Harold Fromm, then William Rackert. He is the one that who has introduced us with the word eco-criticism, which with the word eco-criticism first appeared in William Rackert's essay, Literature and Ecology, an experiment in eco-criticism in 1978. However, it was only in the 1990s that eco-criticism emerged as a separate discipline, although it is a fact that the relationship between man and his physical environment had always been interesting to literary critics. One may also see decline of science fiction during this time, that is during post-COVID-19 literature. Pandemic, we can say, has raised a serious question about the utility and efficacy of technology. During COVID-19, we all were introduced to the new arena of technology. And here we find, you can say, a sea difference in our way of living or in our way of dealing with the situations we are placed in. So we can say that skepticism about the utility and efficacy of technology. We may be able to explore the farthest corners of the universe, but we have been able to find a cure to this tiny organism. Have we conquered our impending fate? This is a question which is floating all over. This helplessness will change the perspectives of humans' invincibility and advancement, even challenge the idols of power. Whereas soldiers, warriors, then tycoons took center stage in literature during pre-pandemic days. But now I believe doctors, nurses, and paramedical staff will find an awe-inspiring and inspirational position in the post-pandemic literature. Then we are living in a world where we are totally dependent on technology. So this technology has also influenced our literature. So we can say that stability of literature in absence of modern technology. Modern day is very different in its outlook on literature. There are many distractions that deviate away from the love of literature that was once stable without the influence of modern technology. There has been a rise in number of individuals around the world. Today we are talking about Netflix, we are talking about Amazon Prime, we talk about YouTube, or even virtual videos. So Therefore, we can say that many distraction enticing the younger generation. They are having so much of a distractions right now. It is not surprising that many find reading literature tedious. I mean, they find it very boring, taking out a book and reading it. But with the rise in digital technology, living within technological era, many traditional literatures have been converted into digital database so that they are easily accessible. The current technological transformation includes the use of accessible smartphones, internet connectable devices, on demand television and cable services. As a result, there is a sudden transformation in literature trends. So the recent trends, such as if we talk about the recent trend that is the most famous and most helping trend, is that is ebook technology. Digital media, blogging, and other forms of social networking play a significant role in English literature today. The primary aspect of English literature that the modern media affects is now modern scholars perceive literature and how they study literature. Recent trends are useful in promoting the exchange of ideas and access to vital information that assist the analysis of literary works. Ebook and other digital forms of written literature are known to foster interest in reading alongside improvements in reading and writing skills. So we can say that the e-book is an abbreviation of an electronic book, or you can say a digital publication of an actual book. The digital books can be accessed by use of particular e-book reader that are available in computers, devices such as smartphones, and so on. So digital media and e-book technology affect the way we study literature and increases access to written literature. Social media influences culture, including how we read and write literature and art. So we can say the most striking change is like the withdrawal of printed media in technology's digital age. Today, books, newspaper, journals have taken backseat in this age. Very surprisingly, in America, most major paper publications like the New York Times or the very famous Wall Street Journal are having terrible trouble surviving in face of the alternate media, that is the internet. Cybernet reading is displacing direct, close, solitary reading. It is transforming the process of literary reading. The reader is continuously exposed to the intertextual ties and virtual ties of mass media and that of information technology. Then we can say that there is the lack of patience and short attention span amongst us. Like people today have short attention span, long drawn out sentences, never ending paragraphs, and detailed long descriptions are not comprehensive to them. For example, if we take the example of Thomas Hardy, he gives a beautiful description of nature in his work, in his books. But there's a question, it arises that is today's generation is able to relate with that description? They won't. So that's why they don't find it interesting, because nowadays there is no landscape left which we can see and admire the beauty of that landscape. So this youth is not able to connect themselves with that description. So that is one of the reasons they are switching over to the modern way of writing, to the modern modern topics. And at the same time, literature has faced uncountable changes ever since its existence. Passing through all ages, it has flourished richly in the age of cybernetics. Literature has become an art form. It's being redefined as per the needs of today's demand or of younger population. So modern tools help literature reach the masses. There is no doubt about it. So stories are now totally changed. Their way of writing is totally changed. So if we talk about, there is an emergence of you can say a different type of literature. Number one is we talk about flash fiction. It is a genre of fiction defined as a very short story. Flash fiction is an in thing nowadays. While there is no set word count that separate flash fiction from more traditional short stories. Flash fiction stories can be as short as few words. Flash fiction is also known as sudden fiction, or you can say short stories, or microfiction, or micro stories. So flash fiction dates back to the time of fables and parables. The form was popularized in 19th century by writers like Walt Whitman, then Kate Chopin, then Ambrose Bierce. So access to the internet has enhanced the an awareness of flash fiction, with online journals being devoted entirely to the style. This fiction have sidelined long narrative, or you can say long elaborative patterns of writing. Earlier, people used to spend hours in libraries searching and reading upon information for their answers or for their papers if they are writing some research paper or doing PhDs and all. Then we can talk about microfiction. Microfiction is a piece, or you can say a story, which is told within 300 words, means that story is limited within 300 words. It is a subset of flash fiction, which limits the stories to 1,000 words. So Ernest Hemingway wrote the most famous micro story. Like any other fiction piece, a micro story has a sequence, a beginning, a middle, and an end. It includes a twist or a conflict. Either it's a change in the character or a twist in the plot. The micro story also has a scenario which doesn't need much detail. You don't have enough length to incorporate descriptions. Writing microfiction is an effective way to hone your writing skills. It demands focus and use of strong verbs and emotional words. It helps one writing to evolve into a sharper and concise version. Today is a time of Google. Like the dictionary is replaced by Google. So instead of going and turning out pages and finding out words meaning, it's become very easy to find out the meaning, and that all credit goes to Google. Then another important way of writing which has emerged recently, that is 6-word novel. So in a new field of writers to experiment, I mean, it is a very different way of writing. So Rebecca James writes, after she died, he became alive. Within these 6 words, all emotions and feelings are conveyed. There is another writer, Marcy, writes, 1 gun, 2 shots, 3 dead. 6 words and the novel is completed. So this is a new fashion of writing, which is challenging the creativeness. It may be easy to write long narrative and detailed novel, but writing a novel as short as 6 words requires innovation. 100 years back, no one would have thought of writing a novel in 6 words. So 6-word novel leave the reader curious and thoughtful. The meaning is also left to reader's interpretation. It requires a lot of creativity and imagination. So we can say that we are moving very near to Ronald Barthes, the theory of the death of the author. So this is the time that theory is propounding. This is a great time that we are totally nearing to this theory. So like other forms of short stories or flash fiction, 6-word story allows a reader to consume an entire narrative in just few moments. So these bite-sized narratives are fast and fun reading. 6-word story is an entire story told in 6 words. So while these quick stories don't have the classic beginning, middle, and end of a traditional storyline, they have a subject and verb that gives the reader a sense what happened and a bit of conflict. 6 words can make a compelling narrative. So then another important way of writing which is emerging, that is, we can talk about blogging sites. So blogging sites have given opportunity to upcoming sloppy writers. They are getting more and more popular because blogs post can be finished in a sitting because they are small, self-contained pieces able to draft in a relatively short space of time. In a couple of days, a post can be written and published. And this way of write publish feedback, it is getting more and more popular as compared to regular writing. So again, the blog post is a small text, not an extended essay. It's simply not possible to introduce lots and lots of different ideas and make multiple points in the post of 1,000 words or less than 1,000 words. So a blog post is the ideal place to talk about only one thing. A lot of academic writing rests on the writer having one point to make and arguing it through any kind of, you can say, journal article. Then another important way of writing has emerged that is called Twitter fiction. It is being classified into certain new literary genres, which are given new names of combining the name of the different genre with the name of the application. So Twitter is a synonym with, you can say, social networking. It has become successful platform for the exchange of ideas, news, and information. It has also, you can say, emerged as an experimental platform through which users explore creative realm of poetic and narrative content into, you can say, around 140 characters. So this Twitter offers, you can say, unique freedom to writers in so far as a tweet can be an entire bite-sized story or even a snapshot of a story that requires readers' active imagination to complete. So Twitter fiction, which signifies a very stylistic word economy, symbolic structure, and very, you can say, to the point narrative. So there are a few examples of Twitter fiction. One is James Meek writes, he said he was leaving her, but I love you, she said. I know, he said, thanks. It's what gave me the strength to love somebody else. And the fiction is over. With these lines, the all emotions, all feelings, past and future activities have been narrated. So we can say that literature as an art of writing and the above mentioned forms are not only new trends and ways of enhancing, but at the same time, these are also re-altering art. We can say it has totally changed the way of reading and writing. Literature has totally changed nowadays. It has diverse, vital, and very spontaneous forms, and unlike the conventional, it has gained immense popularity. It gives you the pleasure of knowledge and quenches your curiosity in small and in a very short dose. So these forms have come into acceptance because of their popular demand. So these new recent trends are like very popular, and people are enjoying it, reading it, and like blogging, twittering, microblogging, 6-word novels, all of them are changing the trends of literature with regards to reading and writing. It's giving opportunity to upcoming talent, and it is helping decentralize the process of who gets to publish what in the world of literature. So if we say that, then another important thing I would like to discuss or talk about is that is the undermining the classic and literary tradition. Of course, these are totally new trends, are fascinating and interesting. But according to some literary pursuits, it is degrading the classics and conventions of literature. Literary pursuits are put off by internet slang, which according to them gives rise to the language of superficiality. Especially when we talk about Twitter, uh, there is an example that how the work is being summarized. If we take a novel of Jane Austen, so like it is written that woman meets man called Darcy, who seems horrible. He turns out to be really nice. They get together. And the entire novel, that is Pride and Prejudice, is summed up in these two lines. So this is the new way, a new way of understanding or writing something, which at least the generation which is a bit older is not ready to just be having a pace with this type of writing. So these are non-formal, free-form styles of writing. They have often, this type of writing has often neglected grammatical errors. I mean, they are neglecting grammar. They are using, you can say, a vocabulary which, as a being a student of literature, we find it a bit wrong at times, and have little respect for the great works of literature from which some of them have copied also. So these are shorter than short stories. And here, grammar is lost and has almost disappeared in today's scenario. So, and then another, the contribution of this type of language the contribution goes to SMS language also, where the spellings have changed, where the way of writing is totally changed, grammar is lost, rhythm is lost of writing poetry and all. So these are the new trends which have emerged very in a very you can say clear manner, and people, and especially the younger generation, is liking it too much. Then we can say that there is another important way of writing, which is also called the cybernetic culture. Hypertext may survive as an art form by offering pleasure of virtual immediacy, spontaneity. But literature as a form of art can be studied in depth. I mean, we are used to of studying literature in depth, adding more weightage to the content. Otherwise, the subject in itself is losing its importance and charm. As hypertext version can be the boon to revive literature. For example, if we talk about D.G. Rossetti, The Blessed Damozel. In this hypertext version will have the poem, at the same time there is a painting. So using zoom in and zoom out, the student or the reader can view the relevant sections of the paintings and be able to relate better with the poem. So today's world is far richer in words and concepts and signs than the world that surrounded primitive man. For more people are getting involved, are taking part in the process of writing than ever before. The changing phase in literature is an uncontrollable factor. Whether it is good or bad is I mean, we cannot say right now whether the things which are happening are in a way happening in a good way, or still it is unknown fact. So we can say that these trends are useful. These trends are very useful in promoting the exchange of ideas and access to vital information that assess the analysis of literary works. Here, digital media also proves to be an important in improving the access and academic analysis of English literature. So here, literary works can be reviewed, and individual may discuss various issues through social media. So like there have been accounts, Twitter accounts have been made about of Shakespeare or Charles Dickens. So there they are reviving their studies. They are just supplying their study material of Shakespeare, Charles Dickens and all to the younger lot, so that they may also get acquainted with their studies. So studies that would previously take much time and work are simplified. Now these works are simplified by, you can say, increased access to literary works in a form of ebooks or audio versions of novels and stories. Moreover, research articles and reviews are availed in various blogs that a scholar may access. I mean, various blogs are talking about very famous writers, and like if a student or if a person is more interested in reading literature, they all can refer to those blogs and they can get acquainted that what good and classical or golden literature we had earlier. However, some thinkers feel that social media in particular is inhibiting the development of art and literature. So there are like people feel that there are various disadvantages also associated with modern technology regarding the decrease in quality of literary works. However, other thinkers feel that social media in particular is inhibiting the development of art and literature. So this is the way that we are heading towards the field of literature. It is a totally new scenario for each one of us, and this scenario has become more prominent, or it became very popular during COVID-19 time, because like we were totally we were introduced to the new field of network, and their students, and they were sitting idle and just going out and purchasing a book or going to library and buying a book have become a totally a thing of past now. So every information, all literature, everything is at one click distance. Like we are able to go through the literature in a very easy manner. But at the same time, the another disadvantage is that the language, the grammatical part, the sentence structure, the imagination part, the in-depth meaning which writers used to write has totally taken backstage. Here, though, in a very few lines, the whole complete thing is being completed. Now, the more students or the readers of literature are more close to imaginative work. I mean, if the line is written, they with their own imagination, which is based on the knowledge they have acquired in the past, they try to dismantle the meaning of that particular line. So we can say that this is the time when we are totally introduced to a new way of writing. So there is a flash fiction, just as I mentioned earlier, has taken a very prominent seat. And here is a quote. This is a quote written by me. That is, the COVID-19 crisis is an intellectual malaise, an era that redefined the concept of literature, where the hardest of times sculpted the strongest of men. So this is the time, this is the situation, this is the scenario we all are placed in. So this is what I all wanted to tell you about about my this way, that is the emerging trends in literature. So this is the direction we all are heading to. That is, we are totally, we have read the classical literature, we have enjoyed that literature. One fiction, one book we used to finish within a week, or maybe it used to take more than a week. But now we are reading a line, we are enjoying it, we are getting the meaning also. But what we are forgetting, or rather, but what we are missing is the actual way of writing. I mean, earlier writing used to take too much of time. Author used to think on the topic, author used to contemplate on the issues, and then he used to make a draft, then one draft, then second draft, then used to come a final draft. But now, within seconds, we are able to depict the story. Within seconds, we are able to narrate the issue or address the issue, and it is getting a great popularity. So this is the way that the COVID-19 has given us so many new things along with a new face of literature. So thank you so much for your patient listening.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much. Before going towards the end of the seminar, we would like to have queries, which is in chat box. And dear participants, I have also allowed you to unmute yourself. You can unmute yourselves and you can ask questions to ma'am directly. Till then, some of the questions are in chat box, and we would like to have more knowledge on that, ma'am. First question is, what is the purpose of this stylistic economy and extreme brevity in New Yawner? If you can
Okay. Can you
suggest
please repeat
something
the
about
question
this.
once again? Yeah.
What is the purpose of this stylistic economy and extreme brevity in New Yawner?
Yeah, actually, the main purpose of this is because the young, especially the youth, who is very tech savvy, is not ready to go through the all content which as we used to go in our days. So it is the demand of the time. In one click, writers are getting too many audiences or too many readers. In one click, they are able to discuss everything. So because of the youth, because of their mindset that they are always in hurry, they are always just want to know everything within seconds. So their need, this type of approach has given rise to these type of literature.
Right, ma'am. Ma'am, another question is related to the previous one. Is it a threat or prosperity to literature if the literature is written in micro-fictional way?
No doubt about it. We can call it as not exactly as a prosperity, but yeah, this is a new trend. And the most important factor while reading this microfiction is that within 1,000 words or within few words, we are able to deal with the subject. And the subject which arises our emotions, which arises our pity, which arises our awe also at the same time. And at the same time, we are left with a imaginative world, according, as I told you, according to the knowledge we have acquired so far. Like my imagination related to that subject would be entirely different as compared to the other person, because what I have perceived in my life throughout or through the readings or through my some practical experience will be, my imagination would be something different. As I told you that there was a line written that a new sale of shoes never worn but on sale. So this three you can say sections of a sentence tell us that the baby was born, shoes were bought earlier, the baby was born, baby somehow baby just died, and those shoes were not worn by the baby. So these three parts of the sentences are telling us the entire story, the mental state of a mother, how she might be feeling about the family, about the you can say the physical pain that she must have gone through, along with the psychological pain losing her own child. So with the dismantling, I mean, now we are more into dismantling of the meaning. I mean, we have touched the topic, we have touched the subject. Now we will imagine that, because we don't get the entire description about that. We are imagining that upon basically upon the experience we had earlier. जो experience we have stored in our mind so far, according to that, any reader is able to perceive that. And this is one of the reasons not emotionally getting attached with the topic or with the subject is, and they are forgetting it. Like we have read our literature and we still remember certain lines. We even remember our teachers, the way they taught us. and we used to have goosebumps while reading certain literary books in our classrooms. But that thing our students of today is missing. Why? Because they are totally into new way of studying. Writing has totally gone out now. So whatever they are seeing, whatever they are either typing or they are reading. They are not touching their answer sheet, pen and you can say diaries. And diaries writing used to be a way of genre earlier, but now it's a lost case now. Yeah.
Right. Ma'am, can we, there is one more question. Can we relate this literature to digital identity perspective?
Of course, digital identity, yes, because digital identity, yes, we can relate to this because due to this upcoming way of writing is the gift to us of digital way of analyzing anything. I mean, the knowledge of digital, we are living in a digital era. So if we are living in a digital era, that means that we are totally into computer system. We are in a very, actually confined ourselves into you can say surroundings. We are totally dependent on the information which we are getting through net. Now we are not taking pains to reach a book, to open it, to read it. No, nor are we we don't know anything about the writer. Who is the writer? We simply know the name in case if we try to remember that, or in case if we try to feel bit associated with that particular short story. We'll remember the name of the writer maybe for a short span of time. But after some time, we'll forget the name. We might remember only a few lines of the story. But this was not the case earlier. We used to remember writer also. Why? Because we used to study about the background, social political background of that age where that writer lived, and we were also we knew that why writer is writing that. Suppose if we talk about romantic age, then we talk about 18th century. Suddenly there was a U-turn in writing of writers. So we were totally aware of that fact, that why writers have taken that U-turn. So we were more into literature in understanding about writer, about their way of writing. Now we are totally confined our knowledge on the, you can say few words, that is 1,000 words, maybe 500 words. And after some time, we tend to forget about the writer and about the writing also. So and this is a totally new way which has emerged, and it is good, no doubt it is good, because as we all are running a short of time nowadays. So if we are moving somewhere, we are undertaking some journey, we take out our phone, we read that, and it is a good time. We have a good time while just overtaking that journey and all. So this is a new way which has totally emerged, and it has kept us in awe. I mean, we are surprised. I mean, it is a totally because we have seen the times when the literature we used to read with the bulky books, and now it's a time that every information is at a one-click distance. So this is the vast change that we are facing today.
Very true, ma'am. There is one more query from Pratima Agnihotri. Is the new literature basically dystopian? The simplification involved is rooted in consumerism. So, if you can answer this question, ma'am.
Yeah. Actually, we can say that that today is the time when we are reading, the students are reading novel in a form of video games, you can say. Like, and the scope is that is too much scope is given, and what has been defining the defining features, we can say, are which is enduring the popularity. I mean, the defining features that the novels which are converted into dystopian fiction. And the articles will also define, certain articles are also defining, you can say, dystopian fiction. And the another important thing is that it is the, you can say, one of the most or one of the most upcoming genres in the field of entertainment. So it is converted into that way. I mean, they like the students, people are reading it as a mode of entertainment more as a instead of mode of you can say classical reading. Okay, so about this way of you can say the other real life dystopian includes the you can say the massive fire destruction in the Western United States, and due to it has happened due to certain climate change, and the you can say the pandemic ranging from countries from all over the world. It has spread. So this is the reason that it has came into emergence. Yeah.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for all your deliberations, and it was a wonderful lecture. And I invite my wonderful colleague, Dr. Monica Dillo, for formal vote of thanks and for sharing feedback link.
Am I audible?
Yes.
I, Dr. Monica Dillo, on behalf of Department of English and M.D.S.D College, extend my heartfelt gratitude for the esteemed resource person of today's webinar, Dr. Gitanjali Tiwari, for her outstanding lecture on pandemic and emerging trends in literature. Ma'am, I am extremely thankful to you that you take out time from your busy schedule to grace this webinar with your intellectual acumen. In her scholarly lecture, Dr. Tiwari deliberated upon a whole new corpus of literature emerging from the global crisis. Readers and writers share a symbiotic relationship, and so it defines our responses to the COVID-19 outbreak. She also reflected upon how literature takes us beyond statistics of global deaths and degree of spread to show how the crisis has affected the individual lives of those infected. It has taught us the deadly manifestations on humanity and how they shape what it means to be human. I extend my deep regard for worthy Principal Ma'am Dr. Kiran Angra, who gave patronage and motivation for such academic extravaganzas. I am also extremely thankful to Dr. Anuradha, Head of the Department of English, for all her tireless efforts in organizing this event in such an efficient manner. My special thanks to Professor Sanjeev from Government College Narayangarh, Haryana, for suggesting such a meticulous resource person as Dr. Tiwari. I'm also thankful to all participants, students, and faculty members for their presence and contribution to make this webinar a great success. Thank you all for joining us today and have a great day. And the feedback link will be shared in the chat box.
So I can leave the meeting now. So, okay.
Thank you, ma'am. Dear participants, now a feedback link has been shared. You can fill the feedback link and the meeting will be continued for next 15 minutes so that you can fill the feedback form and get your certificates. Thank you so much.